So today we're joined by Elliot and Hannah, and they are with Made2Move, and they've been longtime supporters of Fittest of the Coast, really from the beginning when Elliot actually, what were you, Prime Rehab or
Prime Performance Rehab?
Wait,
Performance Rehab.
I was a part of this way before you.
I don't know if that's true.
I got invited the first year, but I was in San Diego. I just want to make that.
Oh, shoot. Well,
I mean, like, coulda, woulda, shoulda, you know.
And you hadn't even created it yet. Whatever.
You weren't actually there. I was.
Yeah, you weren't there. You were in San Diego. You just told us.
Who competed in DRX? I mean, I barely did. I definitely.
Are you bragging that you're a better athlete than me now? Like,
no, I'm definitely not.
What are we talking about?
No, I'm definitely not. I could not stand an intermediate these days.
Who is the better athlete? Good answer. If you're listening to this audio, they just pointed to each other. So that's a great answer for two people that are also engaged, soon to be married, correct?
Yeah, you gotta play that one safe.
Yeah. But dating back, okay, so you both have been part of this for a very long time, which I love, and I love being able to witness people's journeys outside the event. Like, it's fun for me to see, oh, dude, I remember them from 4 years ago, and look at where they're at now. And that's one of the things that I've found the most exciting about watching both of you, and not only your relationship with each other, but also with your business, and just how you guys have grown and how you've taken ownership of that business. And we'll kind of get into that in a minute. But before we get going, I would love just to learn more about you guys. Elliot and Hannah, tell me how you guys first off got to Charleston, South Carolina, because that's where Made2Move is based, and then we'll kind of go from there.
You want to start?
Yeah. So I did my undergrad at Wofford College in Spartanburg, and then went straight to MUSC, which brought me down here to Charleston. Being from Lexington, South Carolina, I knew Charleston was a place that I always wanted to be. And so with MUSC being here, a PT program that I liked, it just made a lot of sense. And so that's what brought me to Charleston.
Just made a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That's not fun at all. I'm from Louisiana, and growing up, I did not know what Charleston was. I am an LSU Tiger, diehard, and I wanted to go to LSU and live in the swamp and in New Orleans for probably the rest of my life. And then I moved when I was 10 to Tennessee randomly. When I was in high school, I just wanted to go to an SEC school. I really wanted to go to LSU, but randomly got a thing in the mail for South Carolina, went and visited and loved it. Was only, 4 hours away at the time versus Louisiana was like 12. I went there, and through, living in Columbia and going to USC, I learned of PT, learned of Charleston, visited a couple times, definitely went to, what was it called? Midtown and Silver Dollar, and the places that please don't catch me dead there now. And applied to PT school, and I actually got waitlisted the first time for Charleston, which was a big hit. I got accepted into Boston, and I was like, well, dang, I guess Charleston doesn't want me. I'll go to Boston. All my friends got into Charleston. And then finally, the day before spring break, I got let in. And I was like, oh, thank God. And then moved down to Charleston, literally a week after graduation. And here we are.
And when was that? When did you guys both end up in Charleston?
2017.
Same for you, Elliot?
Yep. Yeah, we joined the same PT class. So we both made it down there for the class. So
you guys are in the same PT class, and is that where you guys first met?
Yeah. Yep. Elliot was never there, though, so it was hard to meet. He only came once a week.
Elliot was out there side hustling as a personal trainer throughout school. So I
supporting himself and all that.
I love that. So you didn't actually go to class very often.
I went to the classes that were necessary to attend.
Oh, God.
You obviously went to the ones that were necessary to make you a doctor, right?
Exactly. You're right. We got the degree, we passed it, and I learned how to be a personal trainer, which low-key I think was one of the best educations I could have got.
Where were you a personal trainer at in Charleston?
Good old O2 Fittest out there in Mount Pleasant. So I was a trainer there for about 2.5 years, and then in my third year, I actually just was like, you know what, I can do this myself. So the third year, I basically was a traveling personal trainer.
What was the business called again?
I didn't.
No,
name
it was like sport. You did. It was like Southern Sports Performance,
That was
SSP.
That was a different
No.
business.
He was an entrepreneur from the start.
So you had your own personal training business as well before. That's pretty cool. Was it
Correct.
just you, or did you have anybody else with you?
Just me. I contracted one person to help me with a bigger endeavor as something that I wanted to try out. That went pretty well. It just wasn't the right calling. So my third year, me and a friend of mine, another strength coach, we basically went to local high schools and colleges and basically offered to write their football program, their baseball program, like a workout routine. Because going into a lot of like local high schools around the area, and I know back in my hometown, like when I was in high school, it like the strength coach was like the wrestling coach, and he didn't really know anything about strength and conditioning. He just was like, get down and do a bunch of push-ups and then we'll run a mile. And we were like, all right. And so I felt like there was a lot of low-hanging fruit in terms of like strength and conditioning in the high school world. So we went around and we basically were like, hey, we'll write your program for you for X amount of money.
I love that. I love basically trying to come up with ideas for businesses and stuff. Like I don't want to go into it, but I tried to do a summer camp at one point, and it was going to be this fitness summer camp where families could send their kids to just live this fitness lifestyle for a week. I had 2 people sign up. It was a big flop, but it was fun to give it a go. So you guys are both in Charleston. You're both in physical therapy school there at the College of Charleston. What made you guys get into this profession of wanting to fix people, essentially?
I think you should start.
CrossFit. Really, like when it comes down to it, that was the thing that got me into physical therapy in the sense of I don't want to just give people pills or like fix the problem after years and years and years. I want to be on the side of things that helps people be capable and be physically prepared. And like through CrossFit, there was this one pivotal moment where I was kind of feeling like a hippie, and I wanted to be a doctor, but I wanted to do the very like travel Doctors Without Borders thing. And I went on a mission trip, and on the mission trip, we saw so many people that needed physical therapy that had manual jobs. They were walking all the time, carrying heavy things. And unfortunately, all we could do for them was refer to PT and give them Advil. And I was like, wait, I want to be on the other side of this. So I started shadowing Brandon Vaughn with Vertex. I always like to shout out because he was really the person, the mentor that introduced me to physical therapy in the sense of like, you're not just laying on a table while you do easy exercises. We're actually helping you get back to, I struggled with deadlifts and box jumps and squats. And the first day that I saw him, I was like, oh, wow, this is different. Like, this is what I want to do. I remember it was my absolute dream. I wanted to own a CrossFit gym. I was a junior in college, and I wanted to have a PT clinic inside that CrossFit gym. And I was like, if I could just do that. And then coming up to MUSC, I think it was through CrossFit. It was through Mesa in the Box. It was through Pale Horse, actually, that I found Made2Move. And I saw that Eve was treating out of a CrossFit gym. And I was like, oh my God, someone is doing what I want to do. And then I was actually injured at the time because, CrossFit. And I met him through that way. And just the way that I was treated and the way that it was like, no, CrossFit's not bad for you. No, you can do this forever. No, you don't have to give up doing what you love. Like, I'm going to help you do this and do it well and be strong and like not just feel better, but feel really confident in the gym and start PRing. And like, that's how I got my first strict pull-up. It was just such a cool difference between what you typically see in PT, which is stop doing that. It's bad for you. You're broken. You're moving in the wrong way. You're going to get weaker and weaker and weaker, versus going to PT actually changed my health for the better. And at that point, I was like, I can't do anything different or less than this.
Yeah. So how did you get into CrossFit?
Christian Mathis, another shout out, was my freshman year roommate. And I was very much a runner, do some Pinterest ab workout in the gym girl. I played soccer, I played volleyball. I got pretty sick in high school. I got mono for a while and was basically told, like, don't come back to sports. And I started working out, and basically I went to the Y and did what every girl did and was on the elliptical for 45 minutes and then did, like my leg press. And I really did, like, I fell in love with working out. And then when I got to school, Christian was like, why don't you just come to the gym with me? Meanwhile, I didn't understand. She's an elite athlete. Like, she had been to regionals. I was just like, who is this crazy girl? And after my sophomore year, a year spent running 4 miles every day, she was like, just come with me. And I went and I was like, oh my God. And you always remember your first workout, right? It was deadlifts and box jumps. And I was like, that was horrible. I'm coming back tomorrow.
So did you and Christian know each other before you got to college, or was it just some random girl you got paired up with, and then this random girl happens to be like some crazy CrossFitter? Like how does that happen? Does one day she just walk in and like throws her knee sleeves on the bed and you're like, what is that?
I thought she was so crazy because we were freshmen. We were drinking all the time. We were being idiots. And she would go to CrossFit and come back and be like, can you walk on my back? I'm really sore. And like that impression, I was like, I'm never going to do this. But we were both in the honors college and we were on the Facebook group and we wanted to make sure that I went back and I read our messages at her wedding. And it was like, I want to make sure that I live with someone who's like cool, like since we're in the honors college, because we suck. And we literally like online dated for like 6 months. And then we were like, let's be roommates. And we, became really close friends.
So did it take a lot of tugging on her part to get you to go try CrossFit? Or was it just kind of after a year, 2 years, like, you know what, I'm going to give this a go?
She never pressured and like she never really like tried that much. She was just kind of like, hey, there's this thing, like I'm really good at it. If you ever want to come. And then I remember I went to Spain for like a month and I came back and one of our other friends was going and I was like, well, I can't be left out now. And it was never really like this monumental thing. It was just like on a Wednesday afternoon, we all went to the gym and CrossFit Soda City. That was my first gym. And the owner, Josh, like he also changed my life. And I was just like obsessed with it.
Now, was it pretty close to the campus there at South Carolina?
Yeah. Like it's really close to the stadium.
Gotcha.
The Bojangles, pretty close to that. So.
Okay. So Hannah, she gets into PT from CrossFit. Elliot, what about you? How does your journey lead you to where you're at?
Yeah. Athletics was always a huge part of my life growing up. I played baseball in high school, played baseball at Wofford. And so I knew that whatever I did, I kind of went through like a pre-med stint. I went through a pharmacy stint in college, and I just like never really found that thing. And then I kind of like sat back. One of my friends asked me like, all right, dude, like, well, what are you passionate about? I'm like, dude, I've been exercising. I've been like movement, fitness has always been a big part of my journey. And it's made me who I am. So I was like, let's try to pick a profession that aligns with that. So some cursory searching and landed on PT. I was like, let's try this. And then throughout our time at school, like I knew like, okay, not only do I want to do PT, but I want to, incorporate health, wellness, fitness. I want to have a more holistic idea of physical therapy. That's why I started being a personal trainer, right? Like I started, not only did I want to like, obviously want to make a little side income, but like I wanted to make sure that I was always incorporating strength, conditioning, those sorts of things into physical therapy. Like I wanted to see if I could marry those two ideas as best as I could. And so like, that's the idea that I had for physical therapy this whole time. And then throughout my like rotations, so in PT school, you go on a lot of rotations to different clinics, like in the area, outside the area, what have you. And what I learned was like the standard of physical therapy out there is just just not that. It's passive. It's, laying on a table, let me, stretch your hamstrings and then maybe do some heat, ice, e-stim, cupping. It's just not fitness forward. And don't get me wrong, there are plenty of providers out there who I think are fitness forward and are holistic and health and wellness mindset. Like it's, I don't want to paint with too broad of a brush, but like the fact of the matter is, like, the rotations that I went on and the PT that I experienced during school was just not quite what I had dreamed. And so then during probably like halfway, I had a mid-school crisis, and I'm like, shit, did I make the wrong decision? Like, this doesn't seem like what I wanted to do. I considered dropping out. Like, there's just a lot of things that kind of like came to a head right there in the middle of PT school that I was like, this might not be what I'm meant to do. And like, just similar to Hannah, like, it honestly wasn't until CrossFit that it really opened my eyes to like how we could marry the idea of physical therapy, health and wellness, and fitness into physical therapy. And so then like, that's when Hannah and I started talking a little bit more. I started to learn more about CrossFit. She's a huge reason why I play the game of CrossFit today. But it wasn't really until that moment that I truly knew, like, okay, this vision of physical therapy that's been in my brain, like, it's possible, it's a reality, and I don't have to settle for anything less.
I think the one thing that I've always loved about CrossFit is that the community and the empowerment that it provides can launch you into so many different directions, from relationships to businesses to friendships. I think that is one of the most powerful things about this. And obviously it's true for you guys. So the two of you guys not only went to school together, you run a business together, but you guys are actually engaged now, right? I'm correct in that, right?
You're right. Yep.
So this journey has its own story to it too. How did you guys just get connected at school? Were you like, Elliot, were you like, man, who's this chick, Hannah? Or was it the opposite? Like, how does this just relationship, because I'm sure it's got many layers to it, begin?
So many layers, Kyle.
Yeah.
Yeah. It definitely has some layers. I think we were both very, in our PT class, like, there wasn't a tremendous amount of people who were really gung ho about like fitness forward physical therapy and CrossFit. And so like those select few of people really banded together and had a pretty strong bond throughout our PT class. And, our class isn't that big to begin with. It was only about 60 people. So over the course of 3 years, you get to know people pretty well. And so just a lot of events came together where, we had such a like vision for what we wanted to do that Hannah and I just started talking more about it. And then, she invited me to Rhapsody, and, things just kind of took off from there.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of a different version, maybe, but I remember, yeah, we very much started as friends, just like, yo, we're kind of into the same things. We had this like group text that we would laugh at like during class and between class, whatever. And what I remember about us is like, it was always really fun to argue with Elliot. Like I remember this argument, and it was pretty heated about whether or not Olympic lifting needed to be in baseball players' programs. And I know nothing at this point about baseball, but I know a lot about Olympic lifting, and Elliot knows a ton about baseball. And like, I just really enjoyed arguing with him. And then I remember a moment where Elliot started getting, so this is what happened. Eve came and talked to our class about cash-based self-pay PT. And it was clear, I'm sure I made it obnoxiously clear that I was like, oh, like, I've done a rotation with them. Like, I know Made2Move, because I was very much a groupie and obsessed. And after, Elliot texted me and was like, hey, how do you know that guy? And I was like, oh, okay, now you want to talk to me. And I ran a podcast at the time with Mesa, in the box podcast. And he was like, tell me more about this podcast. And Elliot just started getting really interested in everything that I was doing. And he was like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I want to, open a CrossFit gym that also has PT clinic in it. And he was like, well, that sounds good. So do I. And I was like, you're either going to be my biggest competition, or we're going to do this together. And that was kind of the theme for like the first year and a half of our relationship, 2 years maybe, until we were kind of doing it separately, but together.
Yeah.
And then decided, why don't we just do this together?
So you both had the same goal. Hey, we want to do physical therapy, but we want to do it in the CrossFit space. And we also want to own a CrossFit gym and have a physical therapy. You both had these mirroring goals. That's super cool. So now we've met each other. We're both into PT. At this point, we graduate, right? And it seems like, to me, our paths start to go in a separate direction. What happens? Because now this is where I meet Elliot with Prime Performance Rehab. And then I later meet Eve with Made2Move. And I remember having a distinct conversation with him on a phone. I can't remember at what point, but he wanted to learn more about what I had going on. And then obviously you and I had talked. So now we're going in a separate direction. What happens here after we graduate?
I can definitely answer this one.
Great.
So upon graduation, we graduated in 2020. The world shut down. We actually got called back from our rotation early. So we were supposed to be in our last rotation from January of 2020 to May of 2020 and graduate in May. But if anyone remembers 2020, like the world shut down like close to February. And so we got called home early, and then we were sitting there like studying for boards, and we're like, what the heck are we going to do with this time off? Just apart from studying. And so like, I knew that at that point, being so close to graduation, we both knew that we wanted to work like in a CrossFit gym or a CrossFit setting, and then in the self-pay world. And so like at the time, in Charleston, which is where we both wanted to live, like there was only one self-pay clinic. And it was called Made2Move. And Hannah had already had a rotation there. She had already had a great relationship with Eve. And like by that time, it was all done and dusted that Eve was going to hire Hannah and make her like the next head honcho of Made2Move. So I was like, all right, I'll go kick rocks, I guess. And so I was like, well, like I know that Made2Move, I know Eve's not going to hire me because they are just hiring Hannah when we graduate. Like they can't hire two people. And like, I really want to pursue this dream. And I definitely I would drive myself crazy if Hannah's getting to pursue her dream and I don't get to pursue mine. On top of that, I'm like, I really, really don't want to treat.
If I could cut in, were you guys dating at the time? So you were dating at the time.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So we're dating at the time during this. Okay.
So we were already dating. So like it would have been very challenging on the relationship to have one of us pursuing our dream and the other one not. And I definitely didn't want to treat at an insurance clinic and not treat the way that I feel like people need to be treated. And so with Made2Move not doing it, and so at the time they were really exclusively only on Daniel Island. And so if you look at Charleston on a map, like Daniel Island's basically in the northeast portion of Charleston. And so I was like, I'm just going to go as far southwest as I possibly can. And so I reached out to a bunch of gym owners in James Island, one of them being Joey Welling, who's now the owner, who was the owner of Exemplar Fitness. And that's where I started. But now owns Ethos Athletic Club downtown. And so I reached out to him and I was like, hey, Joey, like I am graduating PT school. I'm starting my own business. Like I don't really know what I'm doing, but I will set up a treatment table inside your gym. I will treat your trainers for free. And I will basically try my best to keep your members healthy. Because like, I mean, as a gym owner, like they make money based on, recurring revenue. And the only way they lose recurring revenue is if people get hurt and stop going to the gym. So I was like, I will help you as best I can to keep your members healthy so they can keep paying you money. And he was like, deal. And so I bought a $75 treatment table on Amazon and I set it up in the corner of the gym. And I was like, come see me. And that's where it started.
Wow. I love that. And there's a lot of parallels to my story with Fittest of the Coast. It's basically starting with nothing, reaching out to somebody and say, hey, I have this concept. I have this idea. I'm going to try to provide value to you. will you help me? Right. That was my value proposition to Donnie and Shannon McDaniel and Ironbridge, that, hey, I will bring you value by providing you some money to let me use your facility and bring you some recognition. So it's crazy. And that's one thing I love most about the CrossFit community, is the willingness for people to support and help each other with their own, with everyone's individual goals and objectives. And it's cool to see that. So Elliot, so you're doing your thing in the far corner of Charleston, as far away from Hannah as possible.
Right.
But I'm assuming, you guys are dating, so you're talking, so you're hearing what Hannah's doing over at Made2Move. At what point are you like, hey, is there any jealousy at this point? Is it hard on the relationship? Because you guys are competing with each other in some sense of the word.
Yeah.
Like, talk me through this.
I think I'll start.
All right.
At this point, also, like, to give you some context, it's 2020. We just graduated. It's COVID. Our boards get pushed back over and over again. We just got new jobs. We decided to also each get a puppy, not together, but we each got one.
What a metaphor. Am I right?
Yeah. Because we definitely, I wanted a Labradoodle. He wanted a boxer. Like, we could not share.
Did you guys live together at this time or separate?
No.
Okay.
We lived like literally half a mile away from each other.
Yeah, both downtown.
And so that was already just a lot of stress. And then I remember during COVID trying to help him figure out a name for his clinic, for his business. And I am a very competitive, a little possessive, credit where credit is due person to a fault. And I was very, you have this person that you love that I was like, I want there to be more PTs that believe what I believe, that get to treat the way that they want. And of course I want Elliot to be happy, but it got to the point where it was like, I didn't want to talk about my patients, because I was like, I want Made2Move to dominate. Like, I want to be the head honcho. And I just was very driven in that way. And then my boyfriend was my biggest competition, that, I'd go to a workshop on Saturday and he would go do a workshop at his gym, and we didn't want to talk about it. And our friends, obviously, like, wanting to support both of us. And Elliot has a new business. So whose shirts are they wearing, and who helped design the shirts? But they're wearing the shirts. And it was like, I think I got a little resentful. Like, it was hard for me to be like, this was mine. And like, I introduced you to this. And, that's not super mature or abundance mentality of it. But I really struggled.
I think I can relate, right? I think, you are a competitive person, and it's really hard for competitive people to absolutely 100% go rooting for another person, right? I think it's in our DNA, where as a competitor, you want to dominate, you want to do it. So it's very difficult for you to take a step back and say, hey, go, Elliot, right? So I can understand that in some regards. Yeah.
Yeah. And, like to be fair to Hannah, like, I think there was an element of like myself, like having a little bit of a chip on my shoulder, and like Hannah, Hannah gets to step into an amazing opportunity. And I'm like, you know what, like, shit, like I can be the underdog, and like, I can kind of play into that role. So like, I'm certain that I didn't help this mentality of trying to just like, feed into that competitive nature, because it kind of fueled me as well.
Because you're competitive too.
Right.
And it was like, you don't want to not root for this person either.
Mm-hmm.
So then there was a lot of like shame and guilt of like, why do I feel this way? And Eve is the most like abundance mentality person in this world. But like, I remember sitting in that room and our team meetings talking to Nate, Dane, and Eve, and I was just like pissed. It was a weird situation.
Elliot, at any point when Prime was starting out and you were kind of building, your business and stuff, at any point did you think, what am I doing? Have I made a mistake? I need to just quit and do something altogether.
Oof. Yes and no. I agree with part of that. Like, there were many, many times where I was like, holy shit, what am I doing? Like, is this really gonna happen? Like I made like $750 this month. Like, what, like, am I really doing what I need to be doing? Like, my rent was more than that. So like there were definitely moments like that, but there was never a moment that I didn't like 50,000 foot view, like didn't believe in it. So like, even though there were months like micro looking at it, like there were months that I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, do I need to change marketing? Do I need to do something different? There was always that, but there was never a macro view of like, I need to quit and start something else. Like I knew the idea of a self-pay clinic and a gym made sense because Made2Move and Eve and Hannah had proven it. I knew it would work. I just didn't know what I was doing.
And you had the passion, it sounds like.
Yeah.
A lot of times when you have that passion, it can lead you a lot of different directions. So now how does you guys know each other, you guys are dating, you have two separate businesses. And what I remember from the outside looking in is one day I pop up on Instagram and I'm scrolling through it. And I see this video. Of you guys with shirts on. You rip shirts off. You put shirts on. Prime is gone.
This purple Lambo in the back.
Yeah, right. What happened? Like, because now Prime is Made2Move. Elliot's in charge. Hannah's in charge. Like, what happens and where are we at now?
Yeah, I remember. It was around the season where you needed logos for sponsorship.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
I think that we, Made2Move wanted to sponsor, and also Prime was sponsoring.
Yeah.
And you, Kyle, were like, yo, can y'all send me something? And I was like, can you just tell him to like wait a freaking week and we'll send him the new logos because he doesn't know we're merging. And I think we might have had to, I don't know. It was just like all at the same time. But we obviously, the first, I guess, year and a half, doing things separate. Eventually I brought Rachel, who is one of my best friends, one of our team members, and was my roommate all through PT school and after PT school. And we brought her over to the dark side of Made2Move too. And then I was like, well, now we can really beat him. And then we started talking more, bigger picture and long-term goals. And we were at my birthday dinner, actually at Jack of Cups, also huge shout out on Folly. And I was like, we were talking the other day and like, what if we merged? Like, wouldn't that be crazy? And then we were like, wait, that's actually not that crazy. And we kind of started talking through it. And I went back to the team meeting that week and I was like, hey, just so y'all know, like, Elliot and I talked about this. Like, what do y'all think? Rachel screamed and Eve just started smiling. And he was like, I was waiting for you to bring this up. Like, I have seen this opportunity, but I needed it to be from you. And from that point forward, I remember like it was a lot of logistical things to figure out. But at the time, like we were DI in Somerville. He was West Ashley, James Island, but gonna be downtown. Like he was about to be a part of Ethos, which was just like an amazing opportunity, thinking about like being a PT in downtown Charleston and Ethos, like such a cool thing to do. That Eve was like, Hannah, I need you to really think about this and think about pros and cons. Because yeah, we're engaged now, but like we were getting married. It was like, we had talks with Eve about, what happens if it doesn't work out between y'all, like who gets the baby, basically, like who gets Made2Move. And I, sitting across from the whiteboard that I wrote my huge pros and cons list. And by the end of it, my only con was I'm so invested in this now that I'm really nervous that it won't work out. It was like, this has to work.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly right. Like, so while they were growing in DI and Somerville, it was right around that time that so Exemplar, which had existed on James Island, Joey kind of pitched the idea of creating this, incredible, like 27,000 square foot facility in downtown Charleston called Ethos. And I was like, all right, man, like let's do it. But what it entailed was like Exemplar had to close, and there was going to be like a 6 to 9 month period where like we were not going to have a gym. Which at that point, like I had a full caseload, like I couldn't not have a place to treat my patients. So then I had to reach out to a bunch of different places. And so I reached out to Shannon and Donnie, who I knew were moving into their bigger space. I was like, hey guys, like I would love to like sit down and talk to y'all about like an opportunity of like, can I use y'all's gym as just like a temporary hold up, temporary gym until Ethos gets built out. And so that was the plan. But then at that time, like West Ashley and Ironbridge started to grow as well. And so then I found myself looking at the picture of like, by the time Ethos opens, like that we will like Prime, like I will need to hire because I will not be able to be at two places at once. And we, Ironbridge did well. So I wanted to stay there too. And so it was right around this time that I was like, well, I think I should hire. And so like, it made a lot of sense that like, because I think I announced that we were hiring Rachel Heller maybe a week or two before the merger. And so like when talking with Hannah, when talking with Eve, like thinking about this merger, like it just made too much sense that we had two growing clinics that had the same values, that had the same mindset, and in different areas of Charleston. I'm like, if we put both of these things, which had momentum by themselves, if we put these things together, like the opportunity for growth and something really, really special was like, it was right there. And so we couldn't, like Hannah said, we couldn't not do it.
Yeah, it's that old saying, go by yourself, you won't go very far. Go together, and you'll go even farther. That's not quite the saying, but
you got it. You nailed it.
The general gist of it, right?
It's okay. It's late.
Yeah. Well, I'm terrible with sayings. I'm not very good at that. It's not one of my strengths.
Go alone, go fast, go together, go far.
There you go.
Brilliant. Elliot, there you go. You know it. There you go. That's why you did that. So we joined together. Made2Move is growing. It's thriving. At this point, are you guys in charge of the ship, or is Eve still in charge of the ship? Like, how does that dynamic move forward?
Yeah, that's something that we didn't really like talk about too much. We were just like, we're merging and like, hold on tight, everybody. But like through all those conversations, we were really trying to figure out, like, I was like, Elliot can't be my boss and I can't be his boss. We have to be equals. How are we going to do this? Because he's already an owner and, I want to be an owner. And it was through a lot of conversations, some rejections, some changed minds. And then it was like, actually, from Eve's perspective, it was a similar thing of, I'm never going to find people again that I know and trust so well that are so passionate to give this to. And he owns a business, PT Biz, that helps PTs like us create practices like Made2Move. And he was, in this day and age of the profession going where it is, getting really busy. And he was, really his time was being spent there. And he called us in on a Sunday and I was like, he's killing this deal. And he was like, I would like to sell you Made2Move. And so, from October 2021, and I will say Eve is still a huge part of it. Very much a mentor, a coach, like always a part of the team, but we merged and then we started running the ship and, or driving it or whatever and being in charge. So that was another big change all at the same time.
Yeah. You're now not only business owners, but you have employees. Tell me about that, because that's a big thing to undertake as well. Where now not only are you responsible for Elliot and Hannah, but you're responsible for X, Y, and Z. So how did that responsibility go for you guys?
Yeah, I always give Hannah a tremendous amount of credit in this regard, because like I had almost 2 years of Prime to like baby step my way into understanding what a P&L statement is and to understand what expenses look like and just different, like how do I pay taxes? What's an S corp? Like it's just taxes? Like all these things that like I got a 2-year runway into. And then Hannah was like, surprise, you are all of a sudden now the owner of a business that has 5 employees, And so like when we bought Made2Move, there was a tremendous amount of chaos that ensued. And Hannah had to learn extremely quick. We both had to, like, to a degree, like I had only had one employee for like maybe a month at that point. So like, I was no pro by any stretch of the word. But Hannah had to learn extremely quickly when we bought Made2Move. And so I give her a lot of credit for that.
I think that it was, so if like you look at where I was with Made2Move, like I've always wanted to have some sort of ownership. Also, like I had colleagues and coworkers that were my best friends, and like Rachel and I were coworkers, and 2 months previous we had lived together, and now all of a sudden on paper I'm her boss. And it was a weird, people were like, oh, Rachel Heller was always like, that's my boss. And I was like, this is weird. Like yes, technically like we own the business, but it was really hard for me to see myself as a leader. How do I want to quote unquote be in charge? How do I lead? How do I hold people accountable who are my best friends, who I was, working with a month ago? And it was a lot of like business jet lag of just like all of a sudden I felt like I skipped a lot of time zones when I was still treating a lot of patients. And so I remember the first few weeks of Made2Move, of us owning Made2Move, it was like I had a full caseload, and also we were switching everything over. God bless and thank God for our team, because they were just like, we're in this, and they held on, even though I think the whole year, it might still be chaotic, but like the whole year was really chaotic. And it was just, it all happened really quickly.
Yeah. Our team was incredible. Like, the team at the time was like, man, they had to go through a lot. And even Dane too were tremendous help as well. But like the two Rachels were extremely patient and helpful throughout that process.
Yeah. And the one thing that I love about Made2Move and what you guys exemplify is the culture. I think you guys have a very unique culture, and you might not even see it, but I see it from the outside looking in, that it's this very fun, warm, welcoming culture that is almost contagious. Like every time I see you guys posting stuff on social media, like, man, I love those guys. They're the most fun people I've ever met. How do you guys manage different locations, different places, and make it all seamless, right? How many locations are you guys in across Charleston?
We have 5 locations.
And what are they? Where are they?
So we have Daniel Island. That's the building we're in now. It's a standalone location. And then we are inside 4 gyms. So we are inside of Ethos Athletic Club downtown, Iron Bridge CrossFit in West Ashley, Sacred Pine CrossFit in Somerville, and then Defining Moment Fitness in Mount Pleasant.
Do you guys have plans to go into any other locations in the future, or are you guys content where you're at right now?
I think we're always looking for
What's content?
I think we're always looking for new opportunities. I'm not convinced that we will go into another gym anytime soon.
Got it. So your model, you've mentioned this phrase multiple times now during this conversation, self-paid. What is that? What are you guys talking about here? And why is it so great? Because you guys have referred to it multiple times.
Yeah. So self-pay basically means you're taking out the middleman of the insurance company. And so in the majority of insurance-based, which I would say is a traditional clinic, the PT bills the insurance, and the insurance bills the patient, sometimes based on the patient's insurance. And I think we were literally talking to someone the other day about how now insurance, and for the past, 10, 20 years, like insurance in our healthcare system is getting a little bit broken. And insurance is reimbursing for less and less and less and less. And it's created this cycle and this problem of, now if I'm a clinic owner and I accept insurance is not going to reimburse me for much. And so now I have to bill for things that the patient didn't need, or bill for things that I didn't do, or double book, triple book, quadruple book. And while all of that is going on, you have PTs that are seeing 50 to 80 patients a week who are basically doing damage control for these people that are in pain, who have lost their identity, who have lost the ability to, move without restrictions, who are worried about if they're going to be able to go to their CrossFit class again, and if they're going to be able to lift overhead, and can they pick up their kids? And you have this sad PT in this system that's made them extremely burnt out because of the middleman. And through a lot of our experiences, all of our providers have previously worked in a typical insurance practice. And I think people lasted, 3 to 6 months. And it was like, I am not able to treat at the top of my license and provide the care that I know gets people better and the care that we believe that people deserve in this system. Screw the system.
Yeah. And like, I think Hannah said it really well. Like, you become a physical therapist, like no matter who you are, like you become a physical therapist because like you give a shit and you care. Like we are not the only two people who are passionate about this profession and passionate about keeping people healthy. Like that is the majority of physical therapists. But what happens is they get stuck in a system that they have to see a patient every 20 minutes for 8 hours. And like at some point, like how can I pour in to that patient with the same level of passion and like excitement and like, hey, like, dude, we can do this. We can get you pressing back overhead. Like, and like, we're going to talk about your health, your nutrition. We're going to talk about your goals, your sleep schedule, and oh shit, like time's up, like it's crazy that over the last, decade or two, like that PT has been reimbursed just less and less and less. And it's driven this model of, okay, I have to see 2 patients every hour, 3 patients every hour. And like the ironic part is like every so often, like, so like when an insurance company decides like, when an insurance company decides like, okay, I'm going to audit a physical therapy clinic and I'm going to look in and see like, how are your patient outcomes? Are you getting patients the outcomes that they want? Are you preventing surgeries? Because like surgeries, let's be honest, like that's what costs the insurance companies a lot of money. So their goal is to like, hey, how can PT like mitigate that financial burden from us? And so they'll look into PT and then they'll look in and they'll be like, okay, like are y'all getting good outcomes? Are y'all saving us money? And they'll look in and they'll say like, not really. This is like a C- at best. And so then what do they do? Like for the next 2 years, they reimburse less because they're like, y'all aren't helping us. And so then they reimburse less. Because they reimburse less, then the PT clinic themselves have to see more patients to keep the lights on, to pay their people the same and to do everything. Like they have to see more people since they are getting paid less, right? And so then the next 2 years, because their PTs are seeing more people and making the same amount of money, and they're probably equally burnt out, you know what happens the next 2 years when insurance comes and audits again? Y'all are doing even worse than 2 years ago. Like we're going to reimburse you even less. And so then they reimburse less. PT clinic owners like, shit, I got to have even more people in here. So now like, sorry guys, like we got to see 3 people an hour. Like y'all got to work through lunch. And so then it comes into this vicious cycle of like, you're crushing the PTs and they're getting worse outcomes. And because they're getting worse outcomes, they're not making as much money and then they're getting reimbursed less. So then you have to see more people. And it's just like, what are we doing?
I already knew health insurance was a broken system, but now I know it's an even more broken system hearing it from your vantage point.
And it's like, the thing is like, it's the most broken when it comes to keeping people healthy.
Yeah.
And when it comes to healthcare and paying for your health. And there's a lot of different ways, I'm sure, to provide as a PT or as a healthcare provider in a way that you believe in. And this is our way of doing it. And this is how, some people do it. I think that there's still a place for insurance for sure. And there's still a place for those traditional clinics, but there's also a place for people to be able to get the care they deserve. And we were talking to someone the other day about, she's shadowing for PA school. And she was like, my PA will literally tell me that she's going to order x-rays even though she doesn't need them, the patient doesn't need them, just so that they can get reimbursed. And that's just, you hear these stories and you're like, oh, that's just like one clinic. But unfortunately, in our healthcare system right now, especially for therapists, that has become the standard and the norm. And that's not getting people out of pain. It's definitely not getting people back to their healthiest self and helping them stay active and healthy for life. And it's not the experience that I had with PT. And so it's not the experience that I want to provide for patients in pain.
Yeah. And
go ahead, Kyle.
Oh, I was just going to say, I can 100% being in pain and not being able to do the things you want to do for an active, healthy person is literally one of the worst feelings that person can have. So for people like you guys to be able to provide solutions and be able to say, hey, here's what you need to do to fix this problem. And I'm sure in the way you look at it, hopefully keep this problem from happening in the future. Yeah. Now, you guys work with a lot of CrossFitters. What is the biggest problem you see with CrossFitters that you deal with?
I think that
I know there's so many different ways you can spin this.
When it comes down to it, like, I think the biggest problem that CrossFitters go through is, it's like, I call it like a roller coaster, right? And so they'll be doing a certain activity, and then they, like, at some point they'll have an injury, they'll have a setback. And then they go from doing that activity, CrossFit, that exercise, let's say it's lunges, right? Knee pain with lunges. And they'll go from doing lunges, doing squat, doing lunges in CrossFit, and then they'll get hurt and they'll do none of it. And they'll avoid lunges and be like, I just got to take a break, or I got to get new knee sleeves. Like, I just need to avoid lunges and rest and E-stim and ice and stretch. And then they'll do that for 2 weeks, and then the pain, because our bodies are amazing, like, the pain will subside, right? And then they'll just like hop back on the roller coaster and go right back up to the top. And there's no like thoughtful, gradual progression throughout that process. So it's like this all or nothing mentality that kind of zigzags from top to bottom.
It is very, like you said, like all or nothing. And I feel like that's sometimes like, that's CrossFitters. And that's why we love this sport, is like, we always have goals. And as soon as you meet that goal, you're ready for the next one. And I think that the roller coaster, like, the biggest problems are, one, being at the top and not always having the preparation capacity, whatever you want to call it, to do the things and place the load and demands that they're placing on their body. And then when they get to the bottom, or when they can't do a movement, or when we have pain with something, it's, oh, I just can't do it. Or like, it's just bad for me, or I just have to push through it. It's like almost like these bad, stubborn beliefs that we have. And then we go back up to the top and we're like, well, I'm just going to do it anyway. And then this whole time we're actually getting less prepared, and we're actually getting weaker, and our tissues are actually getting more sensitive. And I think the most frustrating thing is when people who we fully believe, like, you can do this, and you can do this in the right way, and you can do this without pain, have accepted, I have a bad shoulder and I'm never going to be able to kip, or, I always have pain with this. And then they go compete and then they have more pain. And it's like, I know you can do this in the right way, but, we're CrossFitters ourselves. Like, we know reeling in a CrossFitter can be tough, because we just want to, work out and throw down and have fun and do hard things. And sometimes the hardest thing, but the best thing, is to slow down so that you can do this forever. Because we don't believe CrossFit is bad for you. This is something that you can do forever. We all know that, like we said before, CrossFit changes lives. And like, none of us would be here today if it weren't for CrossFit, and we fully drink the Kool-Aid. But in our society, like, we can't afford to not work out. We can't afford to not be around a community that supports us. And that's what CrossFit is. And so then it's really frustrating when people get hurt, because now, like you said, like, they don't have their exercise, they don't have their health, probably their mental health too. But now you take their friends and their community. So it's like 4 of the 5 pillars of health, 3 or 5, have changed. And that's pretty powerful when it comes to pain or an injury, to take that from someone.
What's it like when you get somebody fixed and that light bulb moment in their head comes where I can do this and it doesn't hurt. That's got to feel pretty good from your standpoint.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, it's a big celebration moment.
That's the moment we live for, because we always see the potential way sooner than they do. But the best moment, and like what we're really, with a lot of our patients, striving for, is for them to feel confident and for them to feel capable and for them to have the confidence, the tools, the knowledge, the experience to say, I can do this, and to believe it.
Yeah. And like Kyle, like, you know, we've obviously talked a lot about us on this podcast, but like seeing Fittest of the Coast and seeing your competition that you've built, seeing that grow, and like being a part of that by obviously like sponsorship, and like that's awesome, and like our business will always support yours. But like what's even more special is like seeing how Fittest of the Coast has grown into like a Southeast and like honestly like a nationwide recognized camp. The
summer camp is back.
Yeah, that was a nationwide competition. And seeing our patients who I remember, I'm like, dude, do you remember when Julie like was like convinced that she was never going to squat again? And like, there she is doing thrusters at 135. And we're like, hell yes. Like those moments that your competition has facilitated for us, like that just further magnifies the celebration that we get to have with our patients.
Yeah. And I appreciate you guys saying that, because just like you guys are passionate about what you guys have going on, like I'm super passionate, and like we wouldn't be sitting here on a podcast if I wasn't uber passionate about this. Right. But you know, actually, Hannah, it should feel like summer camp. That is my goal, to create the summer camp of a 3-day weekend where everybody comes together. It's, hey, how you doing? We're not there yet. Like, honestly, I'm so happy you guys came and showed up and did that work. We did that workout that morning because it was a ton of fun, and we're going to actually make it happen this year.
We were fully ready.
Yes. Like that was not that this matters to you guys, but I've added an extra day for our team to set up. So that way we're not dead that morning. But those are the type of moments that I want to facilitate. That, hey, we can all come together. We might do one workout a year, you and I, but we're going to have fun doing it. And I'm going to make sure of that this year. So, yeah, I appreciate you guys saying that. And likewise for you guys, it's been so fun to see your journey, and so fun to have you guys part of our event, because, like I said, the vibes that you guys have, your ethos, your culture, is a culture that I want to be aligned with, right? And I think you guys are doing a fantastic job. And I guess probably my last question for this, because it is getting late, is where do you want to see Made2Move in the future?
First, I would say thank you so much for like complimenting and appreciating our culture. I think that means so much to us, and that's something that's it's hard to demonstrate. It's also hard to like create, and ultimately like we have an amazing team, and our team rocks, and the fact that other people can see that is really cool. I think there's a lot of potential, there's a lot of opportunities, but I think that we've scratched the surface for the people that we can help. And we get a pretty biased view of people coming in and they're just desperate, and they're like, I'm so glad I found you at this point. That what if more people didn't have to get to that point? And what if more people could find us sooner? And what if we could be the go-to, that it's not, oh, I need to go get this unnecessary procedure, or I need to go to this place or take time off and get worse and take time off of my health. It's like, nope, I'm going to go to Made2Move and I'm going to get this fixed, and I'm going to be better for it. And I think that there's just so many more people in the Charleston area and beyond. It's ultimately like we want to start with our community and serve our community. There's just so many people that I think don't even know what their options are, and don't even know that they can get back to doing what they love without pain, and they can live a life without pain, and they can pick up their grandkids and pick up the barbell and feel capable. That I wouldn't want people to not know about that.
Yeah, I'll end it with this. Like, I think Hannah said it well, in the fact that like we are extremely passionate about Charleston and the Low Country. So like at the moment, like that's where I see our that's where I see us growing even deeper in this community. So like thoughts of franchising, like they seem cool, but like what really seems cool is like really investing in Charleston in the Low Country. So that's where I see us, in terms of location, but like in terms of like what we actually want to do is like, yeah, can we take healthcare? Because a lot of people think healthcare is like something that like I have to be broken I have to be broken, I have to be hurt, I have to be injured to go to Made2Move. And I want to like take it off its pedestal and like bring it back down. Cause like, full circle, like I think CrossFit is healthcare, right? Like I think going to the gym, I think going on a run, like that's healthcare. Like I don't want healthcare to just be sick care. Like I don't want you to have to be sick or injured to have to experience like the life change that I think Made2Move has to offer. So I want it to be more proactive. I want it to be more holistic. I want it to be more, I want to bring healthcare off its pedestal to everyone.
Yeah, I think a lot of times you view it as putting a Band-Aid on something versus actually being proactive, like you said, and fixing it. And right on for wanting to stay in Charleston. Like Charleston is such a special community, and we've had a number of people as we've grown say, "Hey, would you move the event to a different location?" I had point blank, no. That is where our event will stay because it is such a wonderful community, and then we want to be part of that community as well. But Hannah, Elliot, I appreciate you guys jumping on, and we'll talk soon. I'd love to have you guys on again. I feel like we just started unpacking things, but
let's talk more. Let's talk about your story.
I was gonna say, we could talk for hours.
Yeah, we got another hour. What is it, 9? Let's keep rocking.
Absolutely not.
I was gonna say, Elliot, I don't know. Are you guys nighttime people or early morning people?
If you don't stop, you never stop.